All right, I did a video like this last week, and I'm not really sure how much y'all enjoyed it or not, but I enjoyed doing it. It gave me an opportunity to talk about a lot of games in one video and really start to look into some of the games for the upcoming weekend. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. This is my second channel. I post here for 1 week during every college football season. We'll be back to the regular channel probably tomorrow, maybe Thursday, but in the next couple of days. But anyway, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of the games involving ranked teams this coming up weekend, and I put them into a couple of different categories. This isn't an exact science, obviously. You can look at like ESPN's FPI index or whatever, and it'll tell you, like, as an example here, Nebraska's playing Northern Iowa. Nebraska's ranked, Northern Iowa's not. It'll tell you Northern Iowa has a whatever 8% chance to win the game, or 22%, whatever it is they think, right? I'm not breaking it down that exact. I'm putting them into a handful of categories. 50-50, which is, could go either way, as I think there's about a 50% chance this ranked team loses. Less than a 50% chance the ranked team loses. More than a 50% chance the ranked team loses. And guaranteed to see a ranked team lose. And those games are reserved for ranked versus ranked matchups, of which this week we have 2. Obviously, if a ranked team plays another ranked team, a ranked team is guaranteed to lose. Then at the end of the video, and I've got them written down ahead of time this time. I learned my lesson from the last video. I tried to write this down as I went last time, if you remember this same video from last week. And then when I got to the end of the video, I couldn't add up exactly how many teams were in each category. So I've actually taken the time to go through before recording, got all the games written down, which category they fall into, and then I'm going to give you an exact number. This is how many ranked teams I think will lose. If you remember last week, at the end of the video, I said 4. That was my guess, that 4 ranked teams would lose. I think we had 2 games last week involving ranked versus ranked. So that was basically 2 guaranteed ranked losses. I predicted a total of 4. We actually ended up having 6. Now, to be fair to myself, Notre Dame lost, and literally nobody saw that coming. Don't tell me that you did. You can think Notre Dame was overrated all you want, and you were right. You weren't predicting them to lose to Northern Illinois. So that was one of the games, obviously, that I whiffed on. The other game that I was sort of wrong about was the Iowa State game. I thought Iowa would handle business against Iowa State. They did not. Georgia Tech was ranked. They also lost, but I predicted that. And Syracuse was my upset special of the week. I took Syracuse plus the points in that. So 6 ranked teams lost last week. My guess was 4, so I was 2 off. Here we go. Let's go through this week's games. Again, I've got them all written down here, so I can tell you which category they're going to fall into. Starting off Friday night, we have a Friday night game. This is going to be a great game. I hope y'all will watch this game. If you're at home Friday night, this thing comes on 8 o'clock on Fox. Arizona on the road at Kansas State. I think I'm going to live stream this game. I think this is going to be a great football game. I'm not convinced either one of these 2 teams are a great team. They're both good. They're both ranked. Arizona 20, Kansas State 14. It's on the road in Manhattan for Arizona. They've got Fafita at quarterback, McMillan at wide receiver, maybe the best 1-2 combo in the country. Kansas State, a little bit sluggish last week against, I think it was Tulane, and a win by 7. Arizona, not impressive either. I think a 10-point win over Northern Illinois. This game is going to go a long way towards determining the hierarchy in the Big 12. Now, this is a weird scenario here. This game actually isn't a conference game. Even though both of these 2 teams are in the Big 12, for scheduling reasons, these 2 teams are playing each other in a non-con situation. So this does not count towards the Big 12 standing. So when I say this will go a long way to determining the pecking order, not statistically speaking in terms of the standings within the Big 12, but just, hey, which one of these teams is better, right? Does one of these teams dominate and win by a couple of scores? Is it a close game? Kansas State's a 7-point home favorite. Weird things happen to road teams on Friday night games. I'm leaning Kansas State in this one. But obviously, since this is a ranked versus ranked matchup, that's one ranked team there that's guaranteed to lose. So I've got them in this game in the guaranteed category. Guaranteed to see a ranked team lose in that game. Alabama on the road at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's been disappointing. I mean, Alabama has to a certain degree, but everything's relative to expectations, right? Alabama's expected to be a national title contender. They struggled with South Florida. It is what it is. They blew them out in the end. Wisconsin, though, Year two now under Luke Fickell. Slow last year, wasn't great last year. You say, well, it's the first year. They're implementing a brand new offense. If you don't know, they're looking to go not necessarily air raid, but, Wisconsin's been like an 80% running team for what seems like forever. Luke Fickell brought an offensive coordinator in who likes to actually throw the ball more than they run it. But because of the personnel that was on Wisconsin's roster last year, a big offensive line, good running backs, a roster that was built to run the ball, they didn't really fully implement that new offense. In year two, this year was expected to be sort of that big step forward offensively. And I haven't seen it yet through a couple of games. And I'm not, Luke Fickell, some of the shine is starting to wear off. I know he's only been there 2 years and he's not on the hot seat. He's not getting fired. I'm not suggesting that he is. They're 2-0. It's not like they've lost. I just thought at this point under Luke Fickell, Wisconsin would have looked better than they have. I've got the Alabama versus Wisconsin game in the less than a 50% chance category of the ranked team losing, in this case, Alabama. Could it happen? Of course it could. We see, hell, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Literally anything can happen. Alabama's a 16-point favorite on the road in Madison. It can be a tough environment to play in. It's loud. The fans are crazy with the jump around thing. I just have a hard time predicting Alabama to actually lose this game, so I've got it in the less than 50% category. Oklahoma State at Tulsa. I've got this one in the 50-50 category. 50% chance Oklahoma State could lose this game on the road at a group of 5 team, Tulsa, an in-state program, kind of Tulsa Super Bowl. Now, Oklahoma State's a better team, but as long as their defense continues to be that bad, and the in-game coaching continues to be as bad as it has, but just boneheaded decisions by Oklahoma State. I'm not going to go into my rant about the Oklahoma State-Arkansas game last week. Was one of the worst coached, worst played, least disciplined games of college football maybe that I've ever seen. They gave up 650 yards of offense to Arkansas. Oklahoma State did. Now, they won in double overtime. But really, Arkansas lost. It's not really that Oklahoma State won that game, but they are undefeated for reasons unknown. They're ranked 13th. I think there's a 50-50 shot they could lose this game on the road at Tulsa. If that defense lets them down and Ollie Gordon can't get going because it's really all they have, they could be in trouble on the road in this one in Tulsa. I give it a 50-50 shot. LSU on the road at South Carolina. South Carolina with an impressive win last week on the road against Kentucky after struggling to get by Old Dominion in week 1. LSU, of course, loses a tough one to Southern Cal in the opener, and then they took care of business last week, I think, against Nichols or something like that, a nothing team. So LSU 1-1, but ranked 16th. South Carolina 2-0, but unranked. South Carolina can be a difficult place to play. LSU's about a touchdown favorite in this one on the road at Williams-Brice Stadium. I've got this one in the 50-50 column as well. I do think LSU's a better team than South Carolina, but sometimes a little boost of confidence is really what a team needs to sort of play up to their ceiling. Now, South Carolina's ceiling is lower than LSU's. So even if South Carolina plays up to their ceiling in this game, they're going to need LSU to make some mistakes or have a sloppy game or get intimidated by the environment or whatever the case. I'm not convinced that will happen. Kentucky was so bad last week. I don't want to take anything away from South Carolina, but Kentucky offensively was so inept. South Carolina had 250 yards of offense. That's not great, but it scored 30. They won 31-6. That's all that matters in the end. But in other words, it's not like South Carolina lit them up for 600 yards and all this kind of stuff. Now, to be fair to South Carolina, Kentucky was punting from their own end zone the whole game, so South Carolina would get the ball at midfield. So they only had 50 yards to go instead of 70 or 80 like a normal drive. I'm going to give this one a 50-50 shot because, South Carolina did have a big win last week. Maybe the confidence carries that over here, and it is at home for them. It could be a tough place to play. I've got that in the 50-50 category. Continuing on down, Oklahoma State on the road at Michigan. The point and laugh for Michigan is over, at least for this week. There's no way Michigan's losing to Arkansas State. I just can't see that happening. Arkansas State's 2-0, but they're not very good. Michigan's 1-1. They're not as good as we thought they were. They're probably not a playoff team. They're probably still a top 20 team, though, at the end of the year. They're 17th. They're ranked right now. They're a 23-point home favorite against Arkansas State. Less than a 50% chance that Michigan loses that one. I just don't see it happening. Our second ranked versus ranked game of the week is Boston College on the road at Missouri, and I think this can be a good game, too. A little bit of contrasting styles here. Missouri's going to throw it around a little bit more, I think, than Boston College is with Brady Cook and Luther Burden, that wide receiver. Might be the best wide receiver in college football. There's better wide receiver rooms. There's better quarterback wide receiver combos, but Luther Burden is an absolute beast on the outside. And I don't know that Boston College is going to have any type of answer for him. Boston College, I think, is going to line up and play this game similar to the way they played against Florida State. kind of ground control, try to win the line of scrimmage battle, control the clock, keep possession, keep Missouri off the field offensively, try to keep the game low scoring, minimize the amount of possessions that each team has, those sorts of things. Both teams are 2-0. Boston College ranked 24, Missouri ranked 6th. I don't think Missouri's the 6th best team in the country. I don't even think they're the 10th best team. In fact, I don't even think they're one of the 12 best teams in the country. They may end up in the playoffs as a result of their record in the SEC, but I'm having a hard time buying fully into Missouri. Lost a lot on defense, including their coordinator. Lost the leading rusher, Schrader, from last year's team. We'll see what happens with Missouri over the course of the season. They're a better team than Boston College. I think they probably win the game, but Boston College is favored by Missouri is favored by 16.5. I think it's probably a closer game than that. And for that reason, with the Boston College and Missouri game, well, it's a guarantee. Both these teams are ranked. So somebody's guaranteed a ranked team's guaranteed to lose here. I think Missouri probably wins a close one, but I like Boston College in the points kind of in that one. Oregon on the road at Oregon State, the Civil War game. This is old Pac-12, Oregon versus Oregon State. We've used to watching these two teams play every single year. Obviously a little different this year with Oregon being gone to the Big Ten and Oregon State kind of being like the orphan that got left behind, right? No one wanted them. No one took them. They're not in the Big Ten. They're not in the Big 12. Them and Washington State just kind of floating in the wind. For that reason, this game is bigger than normal for Oregon State. It's always a big game for both of these two teams. Civil War game, rivalry game, in-state game, used to be a conference game. I think this game is one of the biggest Oregon State games for Oregon State in a long, long time. Through no fault of their own, they really don't have much to play for this year. They're kind of in the Mountain West, but kind of not. Kind of guaranteed a playoff spot if they are in the top 12, but kind of not. Their coaching staff left because Oregon State didn't have a conference, so Jonathan Smith's at Michigan State now. They had a lot of players hit the portal. Oregon's a better team, obviously, on paper, but we've been talking about Oregon the last 2 weeks. We're talking nothing but about how disappointing they've looked. If Oregon comes out flat for the third week in a row, making some of the same mistakes and having some of the same problems and issues that showed up in the first games against Idaho and North Dakota State, I guess it was, Oregon State will beat them. This is a dangerous game for Oregon here. They haven't looked good. They got to go on the road into a hostile environment against a team who basically this is their Super Bowl. I think there's over a 50% chance here of an upset, over a 50% chance that Oregon loses. They're a 16.5 point favorite. I love Oregon State in the points here. The only hesitation I have is that we all know how talented Oregon is. I think we all know if they play a game up to their potential, they'll win by 30. But I haven't seen it. Not a single time this season. They have a bye week after this game, and it seems like they need to just get to that bye week undefeated by any means necessary, even if that means winning a close one here. I think it's over 50% chance Oregon State pulls off the upset. I've got it in that category. Ball State on the road at Miami, 0% chance Miami will roll. No one's going to pay attention to talk about Miami for the next couple of weeks because they play a series of nobodies and then a bye week before they host Virginia Tech on a Friday night in a few weeks. But best case scenario for Miami here is everybody just kind of forgets them and stops talking about them, so they don't wilt in the limelight, because right now there is no limelight. But they host Ball State, they'll handle business. Less than 50% chance Miami loses that game. Tulane at Oklahoma. I went back and forth on this one. I've got it in the 50-50 category. Alabama and Oklahoma, very disappointing last week. Oregon, very disappointing last. A lot of top 10 teams didn't play up to their potential last week, or top 15 teams. In the case of Oklahoma, they are 15th. This week, they were up only 2 on Houston. Pretty much the entire second half, every time you looked up, it was 14-12, punt, 14-12, punt, 14-12, punt, 14-12, punt. Oklahoma breaks through, gets a safety, ends up winning the game 16-12, but not a good game for Oklahoma. The offensive line looked bad. Jackson Arnold was shaky. They struggled to run the ball. They're a 14-point home favorite against Tulane. Tulane's no stranger to playing in these big types of games. Now, I've told you before over the last couple of weeks, I don't think Tulane is as good this season as they have been the last couple of seasons, but if Oklahoma screws around here, Tulane could sneak up on them and get the win. I could put it in the 50-50 category. Probably go with Oklahoma to win here, but 50-50 just because how shaky they looked last week. Notre Dame at Purdue. This is over 50% chance of an upset here. Notre Dame's got problems that I don't think can be fixed. Riley Leonard is who he is at this point in time. He's been in college for 3 or 4 years. He can't throw the ball. Notre Dame struggles offensively with everything they do outside of handing the ball off to Jeremiah Love, that running back, who's absolutely unbelievable. That hurdle he had last week, I know it was Northern Illinois, but I don't care. That was a play of the year type contender there. He's fun to watch. He's really good, but they've just got nothing else. Maybe they've got some decent wide receivers, but unfortunately we'll never know. Not with Riley Leonard at quarterback. He's a shell of what he was at Duke. I think Marcus Freeman needs to answer for that. He has missed in the transfer portal. Well, he's either missed in the transfer portal when it comes to quarterback in each of the last 2 years with Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard, or he's bringing in good quarterbacks and then ruining them, because both Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard looked way better at Wake Forest and Duke respectively than how they have looked at Notre Dame. I think there's over a 50% chance Purdue pulls this upset here. They've only played one game. Well, they're 1-0. So, they're fresh. They're balanced. They can run. They can throw. It's not like the Northern Iowa thing where you just have to kind of focus on one guy or one thing. Purdue can throw it on you, and Purdue can run it on you. Now, Notre Dame defensively has played well in both games so far. Particularly their secondary has been locked down. But if Purdue can run the ball on Notre Dame, like Northern Illinois did, this is going to be a long day for Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored by 10.5. I love Purdue in the points here. It's a home game for Purdue. I don't know that Purdue will pull off the upset, but I think there's over a 50% chance that they do. So we'll put it in that category. Utah State, this is less than 50%. Utah's not going to come out and lay an egg. They're just not. And that's what would have to happen for Utah State to have any chance here. They're too well coached, too disciplined, too many veterans on that team for that to happen. It's a road game. For Utah State, it's a huge game because it's an in-state game against the big boy school. Don't see it happening. Utah at 12 is a 20.5 point favorite. I think Utah probably covers that easily. Ole Miss against Wake Forest. Power 5 versus Power 5 in name only. Wake Forest, not very good. Not in the same league as Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a legitimate top 10 team. It's not a fluke. It's not an accident. It's not a mistake. It's not overrated. They're a really, really good team. They're 2-0. They've blown out 2 nobodies. This at least will be a Power 5 opponent, but Ole Miss is a 23-point favorite on the road. No real home field advantage in Wake Forest other than not having to play at Ole Miss. So the advantage of not having to travel, but the Ole Miss should go in there and get this win easily. They're a 23-point favorite. Less than a 50% chance Ole Miss drops the ball here. UTSA on the road at Texas. Maybe there's some people out there who think Texas might be headed for some sort of a letdown week here after a big win last week on the road in Ann Arbor against Michigan. And you look at the schedule and you say, UTSA, they've been pretty good the last couple of years. Rated by the portal and other things, they're a shell of what they were. They're 1-1. They've already lost a game this year. They're not as good as they have been the last couple of years. Texas, again, kind of like Utah, veterans there with Quinn Ewers. I don't see a letdown coming from Texas. And even if they do, I find it almost impossible that they would lose the game outright. Now, they're a 35-point favorite. That's a ton of points, especially when you consider the fact that if Texas is up 3 or 4 scores in the second half, they're likely to take a lot of the starters out, including Quinn Ewers. Don't know that I would bet Texas minus 35 here, but that's not the point of this video. In terms of Texas percentage to lose outright as a ranked team, way less than 50%. Georgia versus Kentucky, primetime in Lexington. Bad spot here for Kentucky. One of the most embarrassing home losses Kentucky has suffered in the better part of a decade occurred last week against South Carolina. Transfer quarterback Brock Vandagriff looked absolutely horrendous, and it brings me no pleasure to say that. He was a backup at Georgia for a while. I thought he kind of played his role at Georgia the best way he could. He waited. He was patient. He didn't come in 1 year and leave the next. He was there 3 or 4 years. It just became obvious he wasn't going to play. He transfers out to Kentucky. He gets the starting job, and boy, was he bad. 3 of 10 passing, eventually getting benched in the second half. It's just not good against that South Carolina defense. And, is South Carolina's defense good? It may be good. Is it on the same planet as Georgia's defense? No. This is a bad spot for Kentucky here after an embarrassing home loss last week. Georgia goes in and rolls. Less than a 50% chance Georgia would lose that one. Northern Illinois on the road at Nebraska. Again, I'm putting this at under 50%. You look at Matt Rule year 2. Historically, everywhere he's been, it's been a pretty good year, and they don't lose games like this. I guess you can say the win last week was a big one for them, beating Colorado. Not sure how big it was in the grand scheme of things, but you look at Nebraska's schedule, much like Miami, they're in coast mode right now. They've got a series of very winnable games. And It's extremely possible Nebraska is sitting there at 7-0 in about 6 weeks when they play Ohio State, and I don't think they'll beat Ohio State. But can you imagine the hype at and around Nebraska if they're 7-0 when that Ohio State game comes around? It's going to be unreal. Less than a 50% chance Nebraska drops the ball this week against Northern Iowa. Kent State against Tennessee. This is the last one. There's no way Tennessee's losing. It's not happening. Tennessee can beat them by 100 if they want to. Tennessee's got the type of offense that can beat elementary schools by 100 if they choose to do it. Don't know that they will. But they may not choose to do that. They may bench a lot of the starters and try different things in the second half, like some other teams tend to do. But there's a 0% chance. Well, I guess there's never a 0% chance, which is why I do less than 50 or more than 50. But this is way less than 50% chance that Tennessee loses to Kent State. So there you go. That's the rundown of all the games this weekend involving ranked teams. Here's how they finished up. Less than a 50% chance to lose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 50% chance to lose. 1, 2, 3. More than a 50% chance to lose. 1, 2. Guaranteed to lose. 2. Arizona State plays Kansas State. Both teams are ranked. That's one guaranteed ranked loss. Boston College plays Missouri. Both teams are ranked. That's a second guaranteed ranked loss. So we're starting with a basement of 2. A minimum of 2 ranked teams are losing this week because you have 2 ranked versus ranked games. What's the total amount of ranked losses you think we will see this week? I'm going to start with my less than 50% category, and I'm going to say one of those teams will lose. I'm not going to try to predict which one. That's not the point of this video. I've got a whole series of prediction videos coming out today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Last week, Notre Dame would have been in this less than 50% category. They lost. It can happen. Is it likely? No, that's why it's less than 50%. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams that I put less than 50% chance of losing. I'm going to guess one of those teams loses. That puts us at 3 ranked losses for the week. In the 50-50 games, I've got 3. I'm going to go one of those as well. That puts us at 4 ranked losses. And in the more than 50, I've got 2, Oregon State, Notre Dame, Purdue. I'm going to go 1 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put me down. 5 ranked teams will go down week 3 of the 2024 college football season. Am I right? Am I wrong? Remember, at least 2 are losing because we have 2 ranked versus ranked games. How many ranked teams do you think are losing? Let me know in the comments down below. Appreciate you watching. Have a good morning.